Good evening. I'm going to call our meeting to order, January the 13th. This is the regular meeting of Planning and Zoning Board agenda. Ms. Secretary, if we can have the roll call.
Mrs. Protos? Here. Mr. Parker? Mr. Carr?
Here.
Mr. Stavropoulos? Mr. Gialusis?
Here.
Ms. St. Arnold?
Here.
Mr. Vinson?
Here.
Chairman Francis?
Here. I'd like to call for approval of the August 19th minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve August 19th, 2013, as the minutes as they stand.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to accept and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Gialusis?
Yes.
Ms. St. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Vinson?
I abstain. I wasn't here that night.
Chairman Francis?
Yes.
Ms. Protos? Yes.
Okay. Entertain a motion for accepting the September 16th minutes.
Motion to accept the
September 16th.
September 16th minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Carr seconds. Okay. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Delacus isn't here. Mr. Gialusis?
Yes.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
Yes.
Ms. St. Arnold?
I abstain. I wasn't there.
Mr. Vinson?
Yes.
Chairman Francis?
Yes.
And Mrs. Protos?
Abstain, I wasn't present at that meeting.
Okay. Jay, do we need the quasi judicial?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you've got a single agenda item tonight. It is not quasi-judicial, it's legislative, so we can dispense with the announcement and
Oh, okay.
listening to my voice drone on. So,
Okay, now, we are still voting on it, correct?
yeah, you're voting to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners
Okay.
adoption.
Okay, we'll have the staff report then.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Application 13-95 and the corresponding resolution number 2013-63 is a development agreement between the City of Tarpon Springs and Qualified Property Management Incorporated for the sale of city-owned property at 501 South Walton Avenue. The property contains 3.46 acres of land and a 31,780 square foot assisted living facility. The Tarpon Springs Charter requires that the sale or purchase of property in excess of $250,000 be approved by voters in the form of a public referendum. The property sale for this item would exceed that amount. Therefore, the proposed sale will appear on the local ballot in March. The agreement that is included in your backup is not the typical development agreement that most of you who have been on the board for a while are used to seeing. Normally, there is a building that's constructed. There's something that both parties are receiving in this in a normal agreement. In this case, the development agreement mechanism was utilized because it's a good way to apply safeguards and to provide a degree of certainty on the sale and then the redevelopment, or in this case, really a rehabilitation of the existing building. The review criteria for the development agreement is contained in section 99.00 of the Land Development Code, and I'll briefly go over those here. You'll see in your staff report on page 2, the criteria is outlined as follows. There is criteria dealing with the legal description of the land subject to the agreement, and you see that in Exhibit A in your backup. Just for anecdotal information, the city has owned this property since 1995. Criteria 2 deals with the duration of the agreement, and you'll see that in your report, The termination date in the agreement is either one of two dates. One is the date on which the redevelopment of the property is complete and a certificate of occupancy is issued, or 30 months from the effective date of the agreement. 3 deals with the uses that are permitted in this zoning district. You'll see that the applicant proposes to renovate and rehabilitate the existing building and use it as a multi-care assisted living facility. This type of use is a conditional use in the RM15 district. And the assisted living facility would operate out of a single-story building that has a floor area ratio of approximately 0.21. Criteria 4 deals with public facilities, and all public infrastructure is available to the site. 5 deals with the reservation or dedication of land, and that is not applicable in this case. 6 talks about development permits, and you'll see in the analysis the permits that would be required for the applicant to open the facility. 7 deals with consistency with the comprehensive land development regulations, and again, the use is consistent with the land development regulations, and no zoning or land use amendments are necessary. 8 deals with any terms or conditions or restrictions that were deemed necessary by the local government. And you'll see in your analysis there are several safeguards that are built in, and what these are is really penalties for not meeting certain benchmarks. And 9 deals with failure of the agreement to address any permit or other restrictions, and you'll see that's addressed in section 15. And then phasing and timing is the last criteria, and you see that's outlined in the body of the agreement, and the city has agreed to the applicant's timeline. Based on our analysis, we were recommending that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend approval of the development agreement between the City of Tarpon Springs and Qualified Property Management, doing business as the Bernard Group. In your backup, you also have a memorandum from the city manager to the Planning and Zoning Director. You have a photograph of the site as it currently exists. You have a boundary survey of the property. You have a copy of Resolution 2013-63. And you have a draft of the development agreement, which is Exhibit A to said resolution. We also have with us tonight Karen Lemons, the city's economic development manager. She has been working diligently on this particular property for the better part of 18 months. So she's here tonight to present some additional background information to the board and answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Rodney, will Karen be also answering questions to staff, or do you want those directed to you first? Or?
Her and Jay really took the lead on this, so I think we all three can answer whatever questions you have.
Okay.
I'm
All
going
right.
to have Ms. Lemons give you her remarks.
Okay, Karen?
Thank you. I thought it would be good to give you a little bit of background on the project and how we got to where we are today with this. It actually started about May of 2012. Got a phone call which led to meetings with the Bernard Group. They had recently purchased and renovated Sunset Harbor, the ALF that's off of Chesapeake. And they were looking to see if the city would be willing to entertain a sale of the former nursing home property. So we had several meetings on that, and in fall of that year, went to the Board of Commissioners with the idea of the sale of the property for an ALF that would be specializing in Alzheimer's care. And at that meeting, the board entertained the idea and kind of wanted to see if there was more interest in the property and if there's anything else that might be attracted to the site. So we did an RLI, which is a request for letters of interest. We sent that out nationwide through the Demand Star bid program, and just asked developers across the country, here's the site, here's what it is, give us your ideas for development. And from that, we got 3 responses. 2 were for affordable housing projects, and 1 was the ALF, which is the subject that you see tonight. We took that back to the board and explained the responses. And then from there, we went and proceeded to do a full RFP, request for proposal. Did the same type of process, put it out across the country for a full application, a full proposal on the property. From that, we got 2 responses. One was, again, for an affordable housing project, and then from this assisted living facility project. Presented that to the board in it was February of 2013. They liked that. We made the recommendation then to go ahead with the ALF. Now, we had a committee, we went through the process to meet, looked at the proposals, and recommended approval of that project. And so that was back in August of last year. There were several reasons that we liked the assisted living Alzheimer's proposal. One of which I think Rodney described it a little bit. It was about 32,000 square feet. It would be a 100-bed facility. They're talking about totally renovating the property inside and out, and paying the fair market value for the property. We had an independent appraisal done, and the fair market value came out to the $813,000 price, and that's the price that is being paid for the property if it gets sold. It fills a need for elderly care in our community. We have a large growing elderly population. The applicant had done a market study to look at that and determine there's a need for that. There are not many ALFs in our community, and we don't have any that specialize in Alzheimer's either. I had found an article from Senior Housing News from March of last year that reported that in the last 3 to 5 years, there's been a recognition among ALF populations that memory care is the fastest growing need within the elderly care community. And that providers initially expected memory care to be included in about 40% of ALF businesses, and they have now ramped that up to be about 80%. So it is a very fast-growing need in the community. It further went on to talk about there's no cure in sight for Alzheimer's or any other related diseases of that sort, and that at some point patients with memory care will probably have to enter an ALF facility. And as you know, we don't have many sites that are available in the city for this type of facility. They're required to be outside of A and B flood zones. And this one is in a Zone C, so it meets that need as well. It's going to create temporary and permanent jobs for us, temporary jobs in the construction of the facility itself, but permanent jobs, upwards of 60 to 100 jobs that it'll be creating for us. The Agency for Healthcare Administration requires a facility of this size to have at least 60 jobs. The developer has told us they're likely to be hiring upwards of 100. And those will range in anywhere from the ALF administrator, nurses, doctors, therapists, to the nursing aides and assistants themselves. So that's going to be a wide range of salaries. They also have talked about hiring from the community. As you know where it's located, it's within an at-risk zone, one of 5 that Pinellas County has designated in the county, and which means that at least 20% of the population is living at or below 100% of federal poverty level. So we're hoping that some of these jobs will be coming from that nearby community, and it's easily walkable distance for those residents in that neighborhood. It's also going to be supplying jobs for local firms who are going to be supplying the facility, kitchen equipment, food, janitorial services, linens, all those types of things that will be ongoing job creators. And then, of course, the long and short-term revenue. We talked about the one-time cash flow to the city from the sale, as well as ongoing property taxes. Based on what the facility was, we're estimating about $50,000 in property taxes yearly. To the city of Tarpon Springs, that would be about $13,000 in revenue. And then, of course, you've got your utility taxes and franchise fees and those things as well. And then finally, it's as you know, a blight in the neighborhood, so it'll be a nice revitalization project for the neighborhood. It's been vacant since 2005. It's been deteriorating ever since. So just seeing a new project go up there will help the property values, which are declining right now, help to stabilize those and perhaps even increase them. So with the Board of Commissioners' recommendation to move forward, we began negotiating the development agreement that you have in front of you. And I think Rodney stated the purpose was really to provide assurances to the taxpayers and the residents that if this property is sold, that the project will be constructed. And so that's how it's kind of been outlined. We presented the terms to the Board of Commissioners in December. They approved those terms. And then the process goes back to the city attorney, who drafts the terms into a contract, which is before you tonight. And then if it's approved tonight, it'll go to the Board of Commissioners at their next meeting on the 21st for final approval, and then obviously the referendum, and it would have to be voted and passed on. So I think with that, if you'd like, we can go through, I'll go through the relevant terms of the agreement. There may be other legal issues that I would defer to the city attorney to answer as well. Or if you have any questions now.
Okay, let's start with Ms. Protus. We'll start at this end and work our way.
Thank you,
Around.
Mr. Chairman. On page 2 of the agreement, the development agreement, I made some calls. Did the Board of Commissioners in item B approve the $500 per week for a term not to exceed 42 months?
Yes, all of these terms were approved.
And the reason I'm asking, because I found out in other municipalities, it can be up to $1,000, and I didn't, who made the decision of the 500? The developers in negotiating or the city?
Hey, Ms. Provost, that was a negotiated term. By the development agreement, actually, we're not really capped at $1,000. We
Well,
have some.
I was calling around to find out how other municipalities do with these amount of dollars, because that is important to the city if it takes a long time to do something. That's the only reason I'm asking about that.
Yeah, the answer is that was a negotiated term between the city staff and the developer that was approved by
The
the
city
board.
staff and the developer.
Yeah, it was presented to the Board of Commissioners, as Ms. Lemon said, for approval of the outline term. So they have seen that term and approved it themselves.
Okay, in the Board of Commissioners. And you answered my other question, what the difference was with this facility and what we have around. It's the memory, the Alzheimer's, and that part of it. You just answered that. Thank you. This is good, because this is a long time coming for that building. Thank God we're doing something with it.
Mr. Carr?
I guess my question falls in the same number 8. I'm just trying to figure out and wrap my mind around it, where I think it's a good idea when you do developments to have some type of process in place. But the justification from the city, how they justify putting potential fines on it when the building's been sitting for the past 10 years, decreasing, decaying, vines growing inside of it, overgrown trees and shrubbery, to put it on the new applicant to say you're going to be fined if you don't tear out the shrubbery by month 6. That's just a common sense thought of mine that I had. I think it's a good idea to have it in place, but for this building itself, the way it's been sitting for the past 8 years, rotting away, I mean, how come the city hasn't taken care of it themselves? And if it was just a privately owned, they would have gotten slapped with fines and all types of stuff already. That's just a concern I have. Regardless, I'm excited about the project. I appreciate your efforts, Ms. Lemons, moving forward with what you're doing with the negotiating and everything with the going out and doing the nationwide searches and so on. Can I ask a couple questions too about just, since it's a memory issue or a dementia, Alzheimer's type facility, do you know, like, have they talked about what type of implements are in place to prevent like a silver alert throughout the city, safety of like the individuals themselves? Is that something that we should talk about here with that, or was that discussed at all?
Yeah, we really haven't gotten into the nitty-gritties of how they operate everything. I understand just in discussing with them, they have a separate, wing of the building, and they put controls in place, but, that'll likely come forward once we talk with them a little bit further. So I don't have all of the
Okay.
nuts and bolts of that.
Sure. And another question, that's just something to think about, is it sounds like this company has another ALF in Tarpon off Chesapeake. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. One of the questions I would have just to ask myself is, do they have any? I see they have a lot of them. Do they have any major violations to the elderly and their other facilities that we need to be aware of? Because if we're asking them to come into the city and allowing them to come into the city, we need to make sure that they're respecting our elderly individuals that are part of our city as residents and so on. So that would be something I would want to potentially ask and see, in that by allowing a company to come through, are they really taking care of these individuals? So those are really the only questions I have right now.
Okay. Yeah, definitely, I agree. And they do own Sunset Harbor. They also own a couple others in the three-county area. So to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any deficiencies or violations that they have, but it's something, it's public record, we can easily check.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
Yes, have all the utilities been disconnected from that building in reference to water and electric?
Some of it was, they turned the things back on so that they could get in the building and take a look at it. So I believe that the facilities, the utilities are there, yes.
So, because consequently, they have to meet, everything has to be met up to the 2010 building code.
Correct.
So everything has to be totally, is it going to be totally gutted? Not demolished,
Right.
but gutted.
And that'll go through the review process when it gets to that point. They'll have to meet all those codes, have to get all the permits.
That's a huge undertaking.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vincent?
Well, I think it's a wonderful thing to see this land that's been, and building that's been, vacant for so long, and an eyesore, to become a facility that hopefully will serve the needs of the community and provide jobs, put it on the tax rolls. I think it's a win-win for everybody, and I'm very happy to see this go forward.
Any other questions? Ms. Arnold?
I don't have any questions, but I also am glad to see that this property is being taken care of. And from what I understand on other Alzheimer's locations, those are like lockdown places. I mean, they really go to great lengths and extent to keep the people within. So I'm sure these people will have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Giulice?
No questions.
I just want to ask, did you mention something about the property being fenced off? Was that, I heard something about a fence and I wasn't,
No.
okay.
It's got a fenced in there though, in one of the drawings. Just a fenced in area. I'm not sure what part it is. Or part of the plans.
I just hope we don't all meet there.
Yeah.
Have a board meeting there. Remember when?
Yeah, we're getting close,
Why
so.
do we remember?
You won't remember, right?
Are you going to come and see us, Karen?
I will. If you get there before I.
You could still be chairman.
Golly.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess at this point I have to ask if there's anybody for it or against it.
No.
Public comment, you mean?
Oh,
You're asking for public comment? You're asking for public comment?
yeah, public comment. Nobody seems to be answering, so I think I'll close that part of the meeting and move on and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept application 13-95, development agreement for the sale and the redevelopment of the city-owned property.
Second it.
Okay, discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Protos?
What? No, yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
Yes.
Mr. Gialusis?
Yes.
Ms. St. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
and Chairman Francis.
Yes. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like a great project.
This is a great step for Tarpon out there. It's very good.
Okay. Okay, moving along. Next thing is election of officers. So we'll start with the chairman, open up the nominations for the office of chairman.
I'd like to nominate for chairman Mr. Vincent.
Second.
I'd like to decline. Thank you.
Sorry.
Any other nominations?
You can still nominate we can still nominate you, right, as the chairman? Yeah.
If you want me to do it.
I'll nominate Mr. Franzi as the chairman.
More punishment?
Second.
Yeah.
Do you still want to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you did.
It's like 2 years before the mast. They just put you up on the, hang you up and whip you. Okay. Anybody else?
Are there any other nominations for chairman?
Move
You have a
that,
nomination and a second, you can take a vote.
cease.
Roll call.
Mrs. Protos?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
Yes.
Mr. Gialusis?
Yes.
Ms. St. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Chairman Francis.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Now, we do need a vice chairman, so the nominations are open for vice chairman at this time.
I move for Mrs. St. Arnold to be nominated as vice chairman.
Second.
Do you accept?
Do I accept? No. I think I'll decline. Thank you.
My goodness.
I
Okay,
travel,
then.
I'll give my-
I travel too much.
I got the
mean,
gavel.
I'm not-
All right, I move then that Jacob would be vice chairman.
Second.
Do you accept?
What is this? What am I committing to here as vice chairman? I guess.
In the absence of the chairman,
Jeez.
you'd run the
If
meeting.
Ted takes a round-the-world trip, you will sit in for him for 2 months.
Yeah, right.
I'll accept that.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Anybody else want to nominate anyone?
Nope.
Okay, we're closed. Roll call.
Mrs. Protos?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
Yes.
Mr. Gialusis?
Yes.
Ms. St. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
and Chairman Francis.
Yes.
It's such an exciting.
Okay. Staff comments. Okay. Board comments.
Okay, I have a question. I know part of the Whitcomb Bayou project, preserving shoreline or whatever it's called, I'm not really sure what it's called. They installed a lot of granite stones in between the road and the bayou water line. I know that was used a lot during Accessible for Walkers, etc., because there's really no walking area along the bayou right there, and that's just an important aspect of our community. Do you know what the thought was behind that, to completely eliminate the accessibility for people to venture or walk along those lines? Or, I mean, because as a planning, it seems like we're kind of eliminating one of our nice resources we have.
I don't even know what to say.
I don't have any exposure to that project. It's a project that was designed and constructed by the Army Corps of Engineers. So they used whatever standards they have for shoreline stabilization, and they're doing the project. But that's all.
Can I ask a question on that line, Mr. Chairman? Didn't the city have any meetings with them? I was told that the city had no discussion or anything to say about it, and I find that very hard to believe, because it's so industrial looking. It's taken away the beauty of the bayou. Now,
I
what
haven't.
they did on Riverside at the Kettle Powell Bridge is magnificent. It's beautiful. You know, they put those steel walls down with cement. It's gorgeous. I wish we could have had that around the bayou. But those rocks, and if a car runs up on those rocks, are we liable for any damage? Say that a car had to get out of the way in a hurry and they hit those rocks. Who is liable for that? The city?
Again, it's an
Have to
Army
ask
Corps
the-
project,
See, that's-
and I have not worked with them, but the ones here at City Hall who have said, you know, it's the federal government, so they go in and they have their standards and they design and
But we didn't have
construct.
any discussion with them?
Again, it's not my project. I don't know anything about it.
Right, but it's in the city's scope of
Yeah.
where we're at, and part of
But
the
you're
planning.
asking me who has no involvement in the project.
Well, we need to. Who's our voice then for the city as a board to go back and tell someone in the city the aspect of what the board's feelings are and the aspect of something along the project along those lines?
Well, that's really the Planning and Zoning Board, if you're familiar with what the role is, it's to review development applications, make recommendations. That's what you're talking about there is a, public infrastructure project. In the 10 years I've been here, the Planning and Zoning Board has never commented on, things of that nature. But again, if you want to,
Here's my recommendation then. Can we recommend that there's some type of,
Explanation.
well, just accessibility and safety aspect, because it's completely put a safety aspect with it. It's a narrow road to begin with. You have cars with trucks and trailers. The recommendation would be if there could be somewhere allocated in the next 5 years, or something along those lines, sooner would be nice. For a safety aspect for the residents of Tarpon Springs, because there's not a continuous sidewalk along that area, and it's just not congruent with the rest of a safety aspect with the walkable area, walkable community that we're kind of going for as a city. So that's where my recommendation would come in during our board comment area.
And I second that recommendation because I find it very hard to believe that they didn't come in with some plans and the city or the commission didn't see these plans and say, hold on, this is the beauty spot of the community and we don't want it so industrial looking. And I understand there are some thin areas there between the road and the water. But this is just, it's taken away from Tarpon.
I'll
I'm
pass
glad
your
it's being
comments
done.
along
I'm glad
to
they're
the
saving
person
it.
that's involved in that project.
I understand, but we need to let them know that someone has to answer for this because everyone, it's not just us. That's all they're talking about out there, And I don't remember it even coming before the commission if it did. I missed some meetings, but I can't believe our commissioners would allow that to happen. Something slipped someplace. And like I said, I was told that it didn't come to the city for approval. And I can't understand that, being it's in the city limits.
Well, I've done work at MacDill Air Force Base many times, and it is an identical mirror of the shoreline at
Right.
MacDill Air Force Base. Identical. Same granite boulders, same setup. Identical. They're expecting some kind of a onshore something going on. I don't know. It's identical.
I want to ask, when you think about something like that, because you were involved, were you involved in that construction or?
No.
But, okay, but you know something about it.
I drove, when I drove by the shoreline there to go do work on the base.
Yeah, I'm
It
just
was
wondering,
very- It's
what,
identical.
why don't they why didn't they put those things in the water?
You would think,
That would,
because it's an eyesore.
yeah, but it's dangerous too.
I
I
suggest you take a ride across Central Powell Bridge. It's still closed off because they're putting up the shoulder barricades there. But that is the most beautiful seawall. And I know it would take more time and people would complain about the pounding of the metal
It was cracked.
fence part.
It was vibrating the house,
But-
the old powerhouse.
But the thing is, it's what you needed around the bayou, and when they poured the cement in, I just cannot believe that the city let that happen without saying something. And I was told that, well, the city manager told me, he said, we had no say-so in it. Well, that's city property. That's, the aspect of the beauty of our community, but it's done now. They're not gonna pick up the rocks, but if the car runs up there, to our attorney, who's responsible? If a car has to go over the curb and their oil pan is torn out, the engine, all of that, because to keep from having a big accident, there's nothing left for a car to have any safety.
If a car drives over the curb, they're off the roadway, and the city doesn't have any liability. That's the driver that's at fault.
Yeah, but
That's,
all those rocks are there.
doesn't matter what's there. The
We're not
curb
gonna have,
is
the
where
city's not gonna have
roadway's
any
for the
liability,
cars.
neither is the government, because it's a planning level decision that's gonna be insulated by Trianon Park. Like, I don't know, I'm not familiar with the area or the project, but my deep suspicion is that the Corps of Engineers did what they wanted. Kind of like when DOT comes, you might be in the jurisdictional boundaries of your city, but that doesn't mean you have jurisdiction or control over it. They come in and typically do what they want without, they don't require city approval, they don't necessarily ask for city approval. If you get the opportunity to have input, you've probably been very lucky, but typically they ignore it anyway, so.
I mean, if there was a little space of grass, I could understand, even if a child falls over on a bicycle, keep from getting hit and hits those rocks.
I agree with the comments that are being made. That destruction of the, quote, improvement around Whitcomb Bayou is atrocious. It is very hazardous for pedestrians. It's a very popular pedestrian walk, and it's clear that nobody in charge or dealing with this project bothered to talk and look at what the residents use that property for, because you can't walk on those boulders.
No, it's
That's
impossible.
a hazard right there, and a lot of people, and there's no sidewalks, and so if you're walking there, you've got to walk in the street, which is okay until a car comes along. And I hope they can figure out a way to make a nice pedestrian walk, and it is ugly as heck. But it is symptomatic of another project that I notice every time I drive down Tarpon Avenue, where we, slowed down the traffic by putting the stuff in narrowing the street, and apparently the designers never even bothered to watch the traffic flow, because where the turn would be for Tarpon Elementary, there's no left-hand turn. And so in the mornings, when it's time for parents to take their kids to school at Tarpon Avenue, there's no left-hand turn. Cars come over that hill right there at Levis and Tarpon Avenue, and it is an atrocious intersection. That's not the only one where there's a problem. But it's obvious, no one bothered to talk about or to watch the traffic there to see how many people need to turn left, because they took out the left turn lane.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's symptomatic with the bureaucratic stuff that we do in this town and other towns, where they design something, and they don't bother talking to residents and finding out what the needs are.
They're doing a lot of things without talking to the residents, and in the after fact, you can't clean it up. The other day, the fire truck was coming up Tarpon Avenue. There were 4 cars ahead of it. They couldn't turn because the media are trying to get on the road, and there's trees there. It is very hazardous.
Yeah, every time I hear a siren, I'm only half a block away from that street. Every time I hear the sirens coming, especially with fire trucks, I feel sorry, because there's no place for cars to move out of their way.
There is no place.
And I can't believe the fire department signed off on that plan.
I agree with you.
That is, I don't see how that could have happened.
Well, if I was an attorney there, I'd have a camera, because I could be a good attorney for a case.
Rodney, you have a lot of stuff to take back.
Yeah, it's not your fault, Rodney. We're just venting for the end of the year.
For the end of the year.
So,
Beginning of the year venting.
Jay, then, the Corps of Engineers and the Florida Department of Transportation, they just pretty much come in and do whatever they want.
Yeah,
and-
typically.
Yeah.
They might give you some input.
That's wrong.
When they were doing the renovations down on Gulf Boulevard, doing some of the new traffic stuff, DOT took some input, and they removed some sidewalks or added some sidewalks at the request of the communities. But typically, that's typically your input and opportunity is limited and not especially well received.
Yeah.
So again, I can't speak to these two specific projects. I don't know anything about them, but my
wish I
my
was
guess
there
without
today. I'd
knowing
be
is that
screaming
they were just
about
done with administratively.
He's screaming about it.
Okay, do we
Move for
have a
adjournment?
motion to adjourn?
Move for adjournment?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, catch you guys. Next month, Rodney, are we back to the third Monday?
No, there's a holiday, so it'll be the fourth Monday.
Fourth Monday, okay.
In February the 4th.
So, do you know that
Okay.
date? What's that date right off?
I hope I don't.
You know? I'll figure it out, no problem.
Okay,
Okay.
we're done.
Very good.
It's the 24th of February.
That's my birthday.